Andy Cohen shocked the nation in November of 2021 when he enthusiastically announced that the Real Housewives universe was going international. Of course, the show has roots in other countries, but this was the first time a Bravo-produced franchise was going to pass through international waters. Since the first season of the series is wrapping up, I wanted to take a look at it and analyze if it worked. Fan reception seems mixed, bordering more in the negative territory, but I actually really enjoyed it. So let's start with the cast, beginning with the show's clear star, Miss Chanel Ayan. I love everything about this woman. I have a theory that someone found a genie and wished for the perfect housewife, resulting in the bestowment of this magnificent woman to us. She's like an amalgamation of some of the greatest housewives of all time. She has the wackiness of Kim Richards, the confidence of Lisa Barlow. Her fashions make Dorit look ordinary.
Is this the dress you would have worn to the wedding last night?
No, I would have worn something bigger.
Did you get invited?
Bigger!
Yes.
She's effortlessly entertaining like Vicki Gunvalson, especially when she meddles in her son's life. She's spectacular. Everything that comes out of her mouth is either hilariously funny or deeply vulnerable. She's dramatic and reactive, but as we learn more about her story, including the devastating abuse she suffered at the hands of her own father, her behavior started to make a lot more sense, and we saw her desire to calm the rough seas that have emotionally rocked her. It's hard not to have a heart for someone who's been through something so egregiously awful, especially when they make efforts to overcome their past traumas. Sharing her story of FGM was absolutely gutting and one of the most devastating stories I've ever heard on Bravo. But seeing her triumph in finding a husband who adores her and having a son who she is so over the moon for makes the high that much more fulfilling. And she has such a cool job. We've had plenty of models on the show, but Ayan seems to be in the prime of her career, and it's so cool to be along with her on the ride. There's such a fabulosity to her career. It's full couture, not ready to wear. She said that designers are just dying to dress her, and I fully believe it. She snatched the fashion queen title with a swiftness. We see her constantly showing up to casual lunches and full ball gowns, and I was always so eager to see what she'd turn up in. Plus, she was a major player in terms of the drama. Ayan was never afraid to say exactly what was on her mind and say it in the funniest, most entertaining way possible. Was there a factor of acting up for the cameras? Possibly, but she is on camera, and I'd rather have someone go too big than too small. She's a star, and I can't wait to see her next season. But let's move on to Ayan's bestie, who I wish was my bestie, Lesa Milan. I just love her. Even though she was involved in drama, the thing that shined through to me most was her sweetness. Maybe it's just her femininity, but she just had good vibes to me. We saw her loyalty towards Ayan in many instances when conflict would arise between her and the other ladies, and though she got on with the other women better than Ayan did, it was clear she'd always side with her supermodel bestie. We saw her spend a lot of time with her kids at home and work on her business, Mina Rho, a stylish maternity line, putting on a fashion show. We saw her struggle to get her husband to take her business seriously despite the large income it brought in. We also saw her handle death and grief in a very mature way. She talks about the tragic death of her brother, who she believes came to her in a dream to help catch the person who took his life away. I also was really moved by the way she handled the death of Miss Goat, a goat Ayan had gifted her. Lisa's children grew very attached to Miss Goat, so when she died at the end of the season, instead of looking at it as a sad occasion, she framed it as a party to celebrate the life of the sweet Miss Goat. I thought this was very sweet, and it seemed to have had a positive effect on her children. Next, let's talk about Nina, who is so rich it's unfathomable to me. That's largely what defines her, as she doesn't get too in the mix in terms of drama, but I see based on the reunion that feuds are aflutter, and I think if she stays on and gets more wrapped up in the show, the stakes will rise. Her wealth is spectacular, having formerly lived in the Burj Khalifa. We also see her on her journey to buy a Rolls Royce. Some people found her a bit boring, but I feel like she brings stability to the show and brings Sarah and Stanbury into the mix more. But let's move on to our first Caroline, Miss Caroline Brooks. On first impression, I wasn't that into her. I found her to be kind of negative, but as the show progressed, she really grew on me. She's got a hot temper, major fire sign energy, but as we got to know her, we start to see the reasoning behind her emotional reactions, as she had gone through an incredibly traumatic marriage and divorce. One of her biggest conflicts was with Sarah, when Sarah challenged her to spend more time with her kid and break the generational binds that she had inherited from her own mother's parenting style. I side with Brooks on this one, as even though I do think Sarah's heart was in the right place and she wasn't trying to be cruel, she didn't know Brooks nearly well enough at the time to question her parenting, and we saw just how important Brooks' son was to her. It can't feel good to have your parenting questioned, especially being told you're not warm enough to your own child on camera. We also saw Brooks float between Ayan and Lesa and Stanbury and Nina throughout the show. She's kind of in a weird place, as I think she has major love for Ayan, but they can't help but fight like sisters, as both are opinionated women who are not afraid to speak their mind, which leads them to fight but ultimately make up, as they are strongly bonded. I love the banter between the two. I think she also wants to be friends with Stanbury, as she has such popular girl vibes, and I think Brooks is also pretty savvy to the Housewives game, and given Stanbury's legacy as a former Lady of London, she perhaps thought Stanbury was a good ally to have. We also see through her time with the ladies that she's messy and not afraid to stir up drama, so she's very necessary to Dubai, in my opinion. I also enjoyed seeing her work to open her spa, and I'm eager to see it officially open next season. Alright, let's move on to Sara, who seemed to be pretty polarizing. She's the only Emirati woman on the show and serves as a really great ambassador to the country and the culture, both to the other housewives and for us. She has major cool girl vibes, having a bit more masculine energy than your ordinary housewife. She's also majorly in tune with her spiritual side, and it's clear she's majorly into self-improvement. It seems like a lot of people found this a bit grating. She's not afraid to insert herself into other people's deep inner emotional lives and can be a bit intense. I can see from her point of view that she's working to help others become the best versions of themselves, but sometimes her pushing was uninvited. We saw it go well when she encouraged Ayan to start hypnosis to address her incredibly traumatic childhood, but when she pushed into Brooks's parenting, it was definitely a step over the line, and she didn't read Brooks's initial pushback well enough and made the situation worse. From the way the other women speak about Sara now, it's clear that as they've gotten to know her better, they've seen that her heart really is pure and she's as genuine as she says. I'm definitely interested to hear more about her background. From the way she speaks and the language she uses, I think she's been through a lot, but we didn't really get details in the first season. We know that she's twice divorced and one marriage was especially bad, but I'm curious to hear what's really made her into the woman that she is. I feel like we didn't get to know her very well, so I definitely want her to stay on. And last, let's discuss Caroline Stanbury, who is the most well-known cast member, at least to the Bravo viewing audience, as she had previously been a cast member on Ladies of London. I think going in, a lot of us were eager to stan her, but then we met Chanel Ayan, who's way more fun to watch, and with the two of them feuding, with Stanbury seeming to pick on Ayan for no good reason, she quickly became the adversary. I thought she also came off a bit aloof, like she didn't really care about the show or meshing with the other women, but as I got to know her a bit better, it started to seem like a front. I think going after Ayan was meant to start housewives drama, and even though she puts on airs that she doesn't care, you can kind of see that she does, but she's been so trained to come off as if she doesn't feel. I think with time she can thaw out a bit with the other ladies and form more natural connections. Her and Nina's relationship is very strange to me, but I want to see how it progresses. And of course, with Caroline comes her new husband, the much younger former soccer player Sergio. Sergio was good comic relief. His misunderstanding of pregnancy was jaw-dropping.
I told her if halfway in,
That's what I thought.
if it's getting worse, we pull it out and put it someone else. No?
But Sergio, she got very sick with the twins, very sick, and nearly died.
Because it was two.
No.
There was not
There
enough
were
space
two?
in it.
No, it wasn't that. Rod.
I'm not sure I totally understand their relationship as they seem so different to me, but I'm eager to see how each of their personalities change as they spend more and more time together. Alright, so let's move on and discuss some of the factors particular to Dubai. Let's start light and discuss just how glamorous it was. Housewives always has a luxe factor, I mean it's kind of the premise of the show, but Dubai was on a whole nother level in terms of aesthetics. First, the cast was filled with women who were drop-dead gorgeous. Most housewives are beautiful, but this cast was just stunner after stunner. Plus, the cast was rich AF. As far as I know, Nina is the only housewife with a net worth in the billions, with a B. That's crazy. All of the housewives had great style, with Ayan stealing the show in every scene she was in. There was something dazzling about the Real Housewives of Dubai. Along these lines, the show had a higher level of glossiness with the production and editing style. The transition and B-roll scenes had a higher sheen and were more experimental. The women had full-body confessionals, and we had these weird getting ready montages. I don't know how I feel about this. The getting ready scene seems staged to me, and even though I know these shows are produced, these scenes seem kind of fake, and I don't want that thought in my head while watching the show. I want to believe that it's all organic and real. I did like the establishing shots and thought the risks they took were pretty cool. I didn't like the full body confessionals, but I'm a bit change averse, so maybe it's only because it's not what I'm used to. I'm curious to hear if others like this aspect of the show. But let's move on to one of my absolute favorite aspects of Dubai, one that made it really unique, which was multiculturalism. Each housewife came from a different cultural background and brought a unique perspective. As mentioned previously, Sara was the only native Emirati, and this placement allowed her to act as a bit of an ambassador, explaining to us and the other ladies how society functioned in the UAE. She also chooses to dress conservatively and doesn't drink alcohol. We didn't see too much of her religious life, and she claims her style is more cultural and that she just doesn't mesh with alcohol, so she chooses not to imbibe. She's really passionate about her culture, taking measures to keep practices and traditions alive for her son. Nina provided an interesting play on Arab culture. She's Lebanese, being born there before moving to the US when she was a child and living in Texas. She talks about her life as an immigrant in Texas, learning English through soap operas and song lyrics.
I learned my English watching all my children and listening to music, running around like singing like a virgin, not knowing what on earth I was singing at like 5, 6 years old.
She's really proud of her Lebanese roots and, like Sarah, wants to keep them instilled in her children. We see Nina and Sarah speaking Arabic to each other frequently. Lesa and Brooks also talk about being the children of immigrants in the U.S. Lesa has Jamaican roots, keeping them alive with her cooking. We see this on full display in her Thanksgiving feast. Brooks's family is from Honduras, and she talks about just how much it played into her early life growing up in Boston.
Culturally, when I was in my house, I was in Honduras. When I stepped out of my house, I was in Massachusetts.
She talks about the high expectations her mother had of her and how she's ultimately grateful for the experience and mimics her mother's parenting style with her own son, as she's found so much success in life. Stanbury's British culture is also a major factor. We see some of the same issues LVP ran into with her deprecating humor and reservation to show emotion. We see this fully on display when her parents come into town for her wedding. It's clear it's a system she's grown up with. She's guarded and doesn't let other people in easily, but as mentioned previously, I think if we give her some time, it may pay off with the other women. It's funny to see her with Sergio, who's from Spain and very outwardly emotional and bubbly. She said he's softened her a bit, so it will be interesting to see if his effervescence rubs off on her with time. And last, Ayan's cultural identity is probably the most interesting to me. She's Somalian but grew up in Kenya before living in Brazil, then Dubai. It's entirely possible there's some locations I missed in between. She talks extensively about her life growing up in a rural village, and her childhood was much different than a lot of us who live in the West.
My dad would give us everything in our village. We lived really good.
Okay.
Then suddenly he just didn't want to be a dad anymore, and then just packed and left. And my mom was uneducated. She was an orphan, left by herself with kids. I just started helping my mom, you know, at 8 years old, 9 years old, waking up at 4:30 in the morning, crossing the river to go buy bananas, pineapples, put in the truck. It gave me a lot of work ethic as a person, you know, and it shaped me to being a businesswoman. I've done so well for myself.
She talks about how she was set to be married to her cousin, being protected by her older sister who got her out of the situation even though it was emotionally difficult to disappoint her mother. The show is very diverse, not only with regards to the backgrounds of the women, showing us women of different ethnicities and cultural backgrounds, but also with regard to the way the women thought and expressed emotion and approached aspects of life such as motherhood. I also like that we had 3 Black women on the cast, as we were able to see Ayan, Lesa, and Brooks able to support each other, and we as viewers got to witness meaningful discussions about life as a Black woman and the unique struggle that entails. They didn't have to stand alone or convince their cast members to care about or understand their experiences like Ebony or Garcelle have had to do on New York or Beverly Hills. This was most on display on the cast trip after Stanbury and Ayan had once again gotten into it. And it was nice to see Ayan able to trust Lesa and Brooks to stand with her and experience true empathy when squaring off with someone who oozes privilege in the way Stanbury does.
There's this whole stigma that Black women, you know, we're tough, we can take it, we're strong.
No, I'm weak.
Like, we don't need emotional support too, and I genuinely don't like it.
Ayan had every reason to be upset. Caroline gets to call her husband to come and rescue her because, gosh, the horror. Why are Ayan's feelings less valid than Caroline? We're always looked at like we have to be strong. But when a white woman is breaking down, let's console her. But a Black girl's breaking down, toughen up, you're a strong person. I've heard this my whole life. I hate this.
It was a nice change from what we're used to. What I also really appreciated about the cast was how interested they were in learning about each other's cultures. They were all really assimilated into the culture of Dubai, with Brooks being especially into it. But let's move on and talk about the Dubai of it all. So as soon as the show was announced, people were confused. A lot of Americans and other Westerners, I imagine, felt that there was an incongruence between the stereotypes of what is and isn't okay in Dubai and what the network prides itself on. Bravo is a very LGBT-friendly network, with the face of the franchise being an openly gay man, as are a huge portion of the show's fan base. There are also questions about whether slave labor was and is used in the building of the city, as well as questions around the treatment of women in the region. I saw a lot of Bravo fans intending not to watch the series based on these ideas, and the show seemed to as well, as very quickly we hear the housewives pushing back against these ideas.
95% of my friends are queer.
There are plenty of gay people here. Maybe it's not like New York. They go around holding hands and kissing everywhere. We don't have that.
Most of the misconceptions that they heard are not exactly true.
They explained that while some of these things may have been true in the past, they were being phased out as many Westerners moved to Dubai. They make it a point to talk about gay acceptance and how empowered women in Dubai were. I'm not really sure what to think in this regard. I'm an American who has never been to Dubai, so I have no personal experience with the truth of this. The strong pushback from the show came off a little "the lady doth protest" too much to me.
There was some speculation that this show was being funded by the government of Dubai. And I just want to say categorically that that's not true.
I would be a billionaire.
But I also think there's logic in the idea that the culture is adapted given the magnitude of foreigners in the area. They did make it a point to show that the reunion was taped in New York, with many speculating that Andy wouldn't have been safe to go over there to tape the reunion. Again, I have no idea what the truth is, but if anyone has more intimate first-hand experience with the reality of life in Dubai and how authentic the show portrayed it to be, I'd love to hear your insight in the comments section. I'm an outsider trying to do my best looking into a complex culture that I really don't know much more about than what I've read online. The show definitely got me more interested in life in Arab countries. I've learned a bit about countries in the Middle Eastern region on a macro level, but seeing a glimpse into the life of mostly expats in the country was really interesting to me. At one point, Brooke said that Dubai is the new American dream, and the show definitely pushes that. The women were open about some limitations in the country. They talked about how PDA in general is a no-no, whether the couple shares a gender identity or not, and talked about needing to be respectful of cultural norms, no matter their religion or beliefs on showing skin. But the women don't frame it as a burden, just the way things are. It does seem like the women won't be able to fight quite as hard and as loudly in public places as the women on other shows are able to do, but I think that's okay. I'm down for a more cultural experience with this show. I also think that the location will allow for some truly fabulous trips in the future. It's a city different that American audiences are familiar with, and I liked getting insight into another part of the world. Something else I liked about the show was this notion of female empowerment. The women all have interesting careers in very feminine industries. Lesa has a maternity line, Ayan is a supermodel, Stanbury is an influencer, and Brooks is opening her spa. I like that Brooks' business also very much caters to Black women in particular.
I'm a woman of color. You know, not all lasers are safe for my skin color. Not all treatments are okay for my hair. So I was going to 10 different places to do different things. Opening up spa and salon for all colors, textures was a must.
Seeing a need and filling it.
Every girl in Dubai deserves to look like me.
Sara's career was referred to kind of abstractly, but she's a woman in tech and owns NFTs or something. I'm not sure, maybe I just don't understand it because I'm not naturally interested in the tech industry, but she's very successful in whatever she does. Hopefully it'll get delved into more next season. And of course, Nina is both a mother and a fruitcake extraordinaire. I love seeing women thrive, but especially in female-focused industries like we see on the Real Housewives of Dubai. So let's end by looking at the future of Dubai. I think all of the women should stay. We've got a lot to look forward to with Lesa and Ayan being a strong duo and Nina and Stanbury getting closer. I do think the Nina and Stanbury connection is unstable as they've not liked each other until it seems like the show began, so they could end up feuding in the future. Who knows what Brooks will bring us next season? She's got the personal storyline on lock with the opening of her spa, and I trust her to bring the drama with the other ladies. I feel like if anyone may not be back, it's Sara, but I hope she is, as we learn just enough about her to be intrigued, but not quite enough. I also want to see some newbies. We got a little Phaedra Parks on season 1, and I'd love to see her join the cast. She's got such an electric presence on the screen, and it seems like the fan sentiment is turning back in her favor after her Ultimate Girls Trip 2, Dorinda's Wild Ride, but it seems like she won't be back on Atlanta for as long as Candy's on the show. If you follow interviews Phaedra's done, it seems like she's not all that interested in rejoining Atlanta either, but seems very into Dubai. I think she could be just the ticket to breathe some life into the show. Having her and Ayan interacting would truly give me an out-of-body experience. Aside from Phaedra, I'd love to see a friend of Sara's join, as I'd love to hear the perspective of another local. I'm sure there are many interesting women in the city, and hopefully casting is able to find them. Aside from that, I definitely want to see more trips and more group scenes. I think with time, the connections between the women will feel more and more organic. I'm excited to see what's next. So those are my thoughts on season 1 of The Real Housewives of Dubai. Let me know what you thought of this series. I know it didn't get a lot of love or discussion on social media and on podcasts and stuff like that, but I think it was a lot better than people gave it credit for. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, and be sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to hear more Housewives deep dives. Always feel free to leave your thoughts and any video suggestions in the comments. I have a few I'm working on, but want to bring y'all what you want to see, so if you have an idea, let me know. If you want to connect on social media, I'll leave my ats below. Thanks for all your support and sweet comments. They're very encouraging. But I'll see you in the next video. Bye!